Turn now to Washington, where 4 members of the Oath Keepers have been convicted of seditious conspiracy related to the extremist group's efforts to block certification of the 2020 presidential election. The 4 joined the group's founders, Stewart Rhodes, who was convicted in a separate trial last November, and being found guilty by a jury of plotting to keep then-President Donald Trump in power by force. At the same time, a third seditious conspiracy trial involving members of the Proud Boys, another extremist group charged with trying to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power, is ongoing in a Washington federal court. Let's bring in right now senior legal affairs reporter at Politico, Josh Gerstein, and State Attorney for Palm Beach County, Dave Ehrenberg. Josh, not so long ago, we were talking about how difficult it was to get these charges, to get these convictions. And yet we're seeing one defendant after another fall to the charges and being found guilty of seditious conspiracy. Talk about what this means, not only for other trials, but also for obviously what the DOJ's ultimate target may be, Donald Trump.
Well, Joe, I mean, I do think what we're seeing here is the Justice Department honing its technique. I guess you'd expect them to do that given the hundreds of cases that they've brought and the dozens of trials we've had. But if you just look at the batting average here in the Oath Keepers trials, in the first round, you mentioned with Stewart Rhodes, the founder of the Oath Keepers, there were 5 defendants. 2 of them were convicted on this very serious charge of seditious conspiracy. So that's only about a 400 average there. And in this latest trial that just produced verdicts yesterday, all 4 defendants from the Oath Keepers were convicted, even though I think you could argue that, you know, the evidence of their leadership in the group was a little weaker than in that first trial, which had some of the premier members of the Oath Keepers. So, you know, Justice Department is learning how to present these cases, and every trial is different, but there's no question that they've produced a pretty strong record overall in the outcomes of these cases to look at whether there should be some charges for President Donald Trump, a former president, I should say, although I tend to think, Joe, some of his more recent troubles probably more likely to get him in front of a jury than going back to this January 6th episode.
Hey, Dave Ehrenberg, we've been talking over the past several hours about these charges that have been brought and how the conspiracy to commit sedition against the United States has led to one conviction after another. The question is, how can you continue, if you're the DOJ, how do you justify convicting all of these other people of taking part in a conspiracy for Donald Trump, inspired by Donald Trump, and the conspiracy accrues to the benefit of Donald Trump, without ultimately bringing charges against Donald Trump?
Joe, Merrick Garland has a reputation of being a bottom-up prosecutor, where he starts with the low-level ones and then moves his way up. But people are waiting to see if they'll get to Donald Trump and the folks around him who helped plan January 6th. It hasn't happened yet. And I don't think that the verdict yesterday will probably have an impact on Trump's legal situation, because I do agree that the Department of Justice is more likely to charge Donald Trump on the Mar-a-Lago documents than for January 6th. And if he is charged for January 6th, I think it'll be for obstruction of an official proceeding and conspiracy to defraud the United States, and not for seditious conspiracy. I don't think the elements are present when it comes to Trump. But this was a risk for the Department of Justice to charge seditious conspiracy, and it paid off. And it could make Special Prosecutor Jack Smith more confident and emboldened to go for it on 4th down and charge the former president about January 6th. And one interesting tie between the defendants yesterday and Trump's inner circle is that one of the 4 Oath Keepers was in a separate group who was protecting Roger Stone on January 6th. Then he left to go to the Capitol to participate in the insurrection. So if it is true that Merrick Garland is this bottom-up prosecutor, then flipping a defendant who's now facing many years in prison with a direct tie to Roger Stone seems like a logical next step.
Jen Psaki, I know you have a question for Josh, but let's talk a little bit about Merrick Garland here. I see him getting hammered from the left. I see him getting hammered from the right. He's getting hammered from everybody for going too far or not going far enough. But if you look at his record, if you look at the DOJ's record of conviction over the past several months, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, and as Josh said and outlined, they've clearly learned lessons as they've gone along. And if you look at their success in the number of convictions, that speaks to that. I think the thing about Merrick Garland is that he is immune to politics to the degree you can be. And that's the reason that Joe Biden picked him. And he even talked about this during the transition when he announced him. So, yes, does it feel good if you're Merrick Garland every day to be hammered by people in the Democratic Party and people who are frustrated and want to see Donald Trump held accountable? Probably not, because he's a human being. But he has a strategy in mind here, clearly. He is playing the long game for history. We don't know yet what the outcome will be. But I think, Joe, what we've seen at work over the past couple of months is all of the work done by the lawyers who work for his department. And let me ask, go ahead.
Oh, sure. No. You go ahead. Ask a question to Josh.
I did have a question for Josh. I mean, it is true, Josh, that everybody's sitting at home waiting and looking for the smoke signals of what all of this means. Is there anything, if you're Jack Smith from your reporting and his team, are you watching these trials? Are you waiting for there to be a certain point in conclusion? Is there any connection anybody can draw there, or do we just not know?
I think that, there's some connection because you're looking at how juries are going to respond to these types of cases. You're looking at whether the District of Columbia is a good venue if you did want to bring charges, or would it be better to do it in Florida? So there are a bunch of decisions like that. There's no question that Jack Smith's boss, Merrick Garland, is watching these trials. I was in his conference room for a press availability yesterday, and even though this verdict had come in just about an hour before, Garland went out of his way to thank the prosecutors and to note the severity of the verdict. One thing I do think that's interesting here is, these are not actually the cases where we see the most violence. This is the cases where we see the most planning. And I think ultimately that's the kind of charge you're going to see if there is one brought against Trump related to January 6th. It will have something to do with the planning, perhaps not just for the violence on January 6th, but as we were discussing earlier, the entire effort to obstruct the congressional vote. That's really the breadth of Jack Smith's investigation on this topic.
So, Dave Aronberg, while we're talking about different venues of possible legal peril for Donald Trump, one is Georgia. And we're going to hear probably just in a few hours about whether or not we're going to see the report. That report is made public in this case. What do you anticipate, whether we will or not? And then just give us your latest evaluation as to whether Trump will likely face a charge here. He's been Truth Socialing all morning trying to pre-butt that and claiming once again that it was a perfect call with the Secretary of State there when it seems clear it was anything but.
Yeah, when he's on Truth Social complaining about Georgia, he's worried about Georgia. I think the judge will probably release it, and then you'll see that the grand jury likely recommended charges against the former president. That'll put pressure on the local district attorney there, Fani Willis, my counterpart. And I think eventually she probably files the charges. I've always thought that she would be the second prosecutor to file charges, that she would defer to the top prosecutor in the United States, Merrick Garland, to be the first prosecutor ever to charge a former president. But time's a wasted, and I think Fani Willis is ready to go. And if that document becomes public, like I think it will, I think there'll be a lot of pressure on her to seek the indictment. And Trump is very worried about it.